Ready, sir. Okay, with that said, the session for July is now in the meeting for July is now in session. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence.
Let's take a moment to remember the 9 firefighters and 9 police officers that passed since our last meeting.
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, we've got a meeting that has various items to cover as usual. The first order of business is to identify the board members are all present with the exception of one, Gene McCarthy. He is on an excused absence. At this point in time, the next item on the agenda is the executive session. Possible vote to go into executive session on personnel matters in reference to the fire chief's self-evaluation pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A1 and legal advice pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No. We are now in executive session. We're back in open session. First order of business in open session is just to give direction to staff in relation to discussions in executive sessions that we will review the document and we'll move forward with getting it over to Chief Mazulis for his input. And we will also expect it in and around the 30th, just slightly after the 30th, like the 1st. And then we'll get it back to you, Kimberly, within that week's time.
Mm-hmm.
No later than what date?
No later than the 8th.
Okay, no later than the 8th. We'll need to get it back with our comments to staff so that it can be recompiled and inserted into the meeting packet for our next meeting. Okay, that's the direction. Next on the agenda is to reconvene into regular business, as we just said, and public forum. Do we have any speakers? Oh, okay, we already took care of that. Our consent agenda for that we have before us is the June 20th, 2023 meeting minutes, which is the only item. With that said, I move to approve those minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the meeting minutes are approved. Our financial report and updates, Director of Finance is Gabe Boldra, and is he coming from remote?
Sarah will be remote, presenting or fulfilling Gabe's role. If I saw the names correctly.
That is
Okay,
correct.
Simon, are you? Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Kimberly, do you have my charts or do you want me to share my screen? It looks like I'm locked right now to share.
Have them. We have them, Sarah.
Looks like we have them. Okay.
Perfect. Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. In your board packet, you will have the June 2023 financial reports. I'll touch on a couple of things for June, as well as where we landed so far for the fiscal year, and then touch on some where we are from a fund balance, and then answer any questions you may have. Total revenue for June is $700,536, which is over budget by about $19,000. That's predominantly driven by our non-tax levy revenue for June came in at $514,000, which is $160,000 over budget. That's predominantly related to our Prop 207 revenue, which was $126,000, as well as some increase in interest earnings that we have, as well as offset by some lower than anticipated wildland revenue. Our tax levy revenue came in for June at 186,000, which is under budget by 141,000. But when we get to looking at our year-to-date numbers, we're very close in line with where we are expected to be. Total expenses for June are just under 2 million at 1.96, which is under budget by about $47,000. Personnel costs are under budget by $159,676, which is predominantly related to that lack of wildland deployment and those wages and associated benefit costs. Our buildings and land for the month came in right at budget, just at between 37,000. Vehicles and equipment is up over budget by 109,000. That's predominantly related to some timing on our turnouts that we purchased, which was about $68,000, as well as some timing around our NOx purchases for CRR and some higher than anticipated vehicle maintenance costs for the month. And then communications and IT is up over budget by about 28,000, and that's driven predominantly related to some IT related projects, as well as the dashboard special project. And then next slide. Year to date, our total revenue was $22,154,000, which is up over budget by $522,000. For tax levy revenue, we ended the year at 18.1 million, which is just about $69,000 under budget. So good job collecting our tax revenue there. Non-tax levy revenue, we were at $4,052,714, which is up over budget by $590,000. Again, same kind of thing that we talked about before with our interest revenue. Having that higher cash balance in the bank is allowing us to draw upon and incurred more interest revenue. We also have our retiree health benefits revenue, which is an offset in our expenses, and then additional wildland revenue over our budget. As far as expenditures go, total expenditures were $19.6 million, which is under budget by $231,000. The big drivers there are personnel expenses of $174,000, again, driven by our wildland and our associated benefit costs there. Building and land was under budget by $83,000, and that is driven by our lower than anticipated building and repair utility costs. Our vehicles and equipment are up over budget by $61,000, and that's again driven by our increase in PPE that I mentioned earlier, as well as our EMS costs have increased, and then we had some increase in our vehicle maintenance costs throughout the year. Communications and IT is about $61,000 over budget, and again, that's due to some network and IT improvements that we had earlier in the year, as well as that dashboard special project. And then finally, our managerial cost is under budget by $56,000, and that's driven by our election costs that we did not have in November, as well as some lower travel expenditures in the year. Next slide. This one's hard to see, I apologize, but overall, this is our percentage. Oh, wait, did I lose it?
You keep going, sorry. Can't
Okay.
read it anyhow.
Okay, sorry. So our percentage of budget spend for year to date, obviously we're through the full year. So that slide really just shows that we've spent 99% of our budget with 1% to go. So we did underspend from our total expenditures side, which is continued throughout the last couple of years, and great job with the organization. The next slide is regarding our expenditure categories. So really what you're looking here is what kind of money are we spending on each one type of our costs. So 85% of our budget was going to personnel, 7% goes to operations, 5% goes to communications, with 3% left over for managerial. And that's really in line with what we've seen over the last several years as well. And then finally, just ending from a cash position perspective, Our cash as of June was $14.6 million compared to 13.5 as of June of 2022, which is an increase of approximately $1.1 million. In addition, our other assets increased by $900,000 and our liabilities decreased by $500,000. So that really is resulting in an increased fund position across all of our funds of about $2.5 million. This does not include any adjustments for the PSPRS where we are from a pension perspective, but that will be adjusted once we go through our audit and make our final adjustments. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Yes, I have one question for you. And you may have explained it, but in looking at the year-to-date expenses where it shows 99% of the budget was spent and we have 1% left, does that represent a fair look at what our carryover is into the new year until we receive our funding from the county?
That is, Chairman Soto, that's a great question. So yes, that is what we are taking from this fiscal year, carrying it over to next year. Obviously, we still have our fund balance from previous years and the continued work that the organization has done to work on our cost structure. So, but that 1% is what's carrying over just from this fiscal year.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we don't have any other questions, and thank you for your report. And with that, I'll move to approve the finance report for June of 2023. Do I have a second? Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The finance report for June of 2023 has been approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next item up on the agenda is our chief's report. So whether it's Chief Mazulis or Chief Coyle, fire away.
I am here. I am here. Do you guys have me all right?
Yes.
All right. As requested, as directed, we are going to have some abbreviated reports from some of the different divisions so that we can focus our time on hearing what Jordan and Buzz have to say. So with that being said, we'll start with Heidi Robinson, administrative updates.
All right, good
Yeah, if you
evening.
go to Heidi's slide. Good evening.
Good evening. So in the interest of brevity, the slide pictures kind of show what we've been doing, which is some cross-departmental collaborative work among the administrative team, working on a couple of initiatives on conflict management and communication. I think that work has been really successful so far. The teamwork and the collaborative effort has really been inspiring. And I think that it's really helped the cohesion of the team, even across different departments. So proud to be a part of that work, looking forward to continuing it. And with that, I will end my report and entertain any questions if you have them.
You have one.
Yeah. So Heidi,
Yes.
It's on. You just have to yell at it.
it's on, it's recording.
Heidi, quick question.
Sure.
I'm delighted to see the pictures, but I have no idea what they refer to.
Oh, let me share. So Kim managed to find some wonderful pictures taken of when the administrative team joined Chief Lakowski at Burn Camp this summer, serving lunch at that event, which is an annual event the Sedona Fire participates in. And then the other one is a delightful picture of Kim and Stephanie. I think Kim's taking the picture though, of repotting the plants in the lobby. So we get a lot of nice sunshine up in that lobby and making that a welcoming environment for visitors to the district. And that's them cultivating a plant out there.
And
Thanks.
you have redistributed them widely as you can see.
Okay, thank you.
Made it to our meeting, so.
They did.
Bamboo. So thank you very much, and we appreciate the brevity of your report. Thank you.
You bet. Looking
Chief-
forward to hearing from Chiefs Lakowski and Baker.
Joe, Chief Mazulis?
All right. And I do have one of those plants in my living room now. And moving on, we will go to Assistant Chief Jason Coyle.
I was just looking at the slides here and I'll speak to the one on the bottom left there where the motorhome's on fire. So that was an excellent example of our interagency coordination that, you know, when that happened, we were able to work with, there's some glitches, which I'll share with y'all offline, mostly my fault. But, we were able to work with the Forest Service, get a helicopter up overhead immediately for that upper left-hand corner picture and coordinate with all their resources as we attack that fire from the ground. And why that's such a big deal is this spring it was wet, but where that fire happened on the last big oxbow switchback before you come up the canyon, and it happened at the one at the bottom. Everything on the from where you cross the bridge that they were working on forever at the bottom of the canyon, everything on the east side of that drainage, you know, has a burn in recorded history. And that type of fire, throwing the embers and stuff like it was up there, it's, you know, that coordination and that effective collaboration on scene can make the difference in something that's a bad day to something that is a several week event. So, you know, we tried not to lose sight of that, even though it was a, you know, it didn't amount to much, really, that particular fire. The other thing that I would like to share with the board is right now, unless the numbers have changed, we have 14 prospective firefighters, candidates, that have submitted their complete packets. And I suspect that when Chief Mazulis gets back, we'll also be sharing with the board about some of the different alternatives that we explore going forward to look, to ensure that we maintain an adequate pipeline of qualified applicants, as, you know, the interest in the fire service, or at least specific to some of the challenges that we face in Sedona with housing and other things, seems to be waning. How we can address that in ways that ensure that we're making ensure that we continue to get qualified applicants. The rest of what I wanted to speak, well, one wildfire thing, and then the rest of what I want to speak about, I'll talk after Dory, because it's kind of a little bit of an intro into what those guys are talking about. But the wildfire stuff, there, Flagstaff hit 96 degrees 2 days ago, 3 days in a row that it broke records. The short version about what's going on right now is there's actually moisture in the air, but the high pressure is set up directly over the top of us. So those cells aren't able to build up to the height that they need to cool off enough to make clouds and the rain to precipitate out. When that does happen, which it will happen, you know, maybe not this week, but it will happen. One of the things that we need to be on the lookout for is the outflow winds that are associated with that. You know, that's what led to the fatalities at Yarnell, was the crews, as they moved from a place of safety to where they got caught. They thought they were on the flank of the fire. As those big cells build up and they drop the rain drags air down with it. When that air hits the ground, it goes in every direction. And depending on what the terrain is, it can funnel that wind. And then when that wind hits a fire, it can turn a flank into a head fire, and it can move it at extreme speeds. It's important to remember for wildfire. It's also important to remember if you get caught out in any of that weather, because, you know, especially this time of year before the soil's been saturated, it can cause blinding dust. You see those telephone poles sheared off in Phoenix. That's because as soon as that air hits the ground, man, it's got to go one direction or another, and it creates shear. It creates forces that are different on different parts of those poles and breaks them in half. So just it's something that, very important thing to be heads up about. You know, watch that Virga. You can read the dust coming off the ground in front of you. You see that dust line. It doesn't have to be a whole haboob, but you see that dust line moving towards you. It's probably a good time to get in your vehicle, get in your house, put your umbrella down, make sure that you're out of harm's way. I'll kick it to Dory. Or back.
Okay. Dory, I think you're up next.
All right, from an inspection standpoint, we've been really busy on site inspections, and plan reviews are starting to stack up, like everybody else is seeing, between Coconino and Yavapai County. 24 were completed last month, and we've probably got 50 in the hopper to complete over the next few weeks. And that's not including what could potentially come in. So Kirk's been busy since he's been out in the field doing everything from that perspective. And then between him, myself, and John Davis, we've been handling reviews. He's also been busy this past month going and doing defensible space presentations in some of the HOAs. And that's also been in conjunction with also some of the home preparedness to include residential Knox boxes for EMS access for people that frequent slips, trips, and falls, things of that nature, so we don't have to force entry into homes. State Route 89A blasting has been put on hold. There were some safety concerns that were brought to me by the blasting team and the safety, so all of the entities involved are kind of going back to reevaluating where they were on the drawing board in the project. So we look to see some updates probably in the next couple weeks as to when they might blast or get ready to blast and what the revised project plan looks like. This month's safety message goes into monsoon preparedness. Every year we see this between the beginning of June and the end of September. Significant risks include flash floods, downburst winds, lightning, thunderstorms, and dust storms, extreme heat, and wildfires. What are we up to? 18 days now, I think, straight of 110 plus down in the valley, and then today it was 108 in Sedona. So we're not immune to the heat wave. We're just a little bit cooler in the valley. So that's currently probably our deadliest threat. But northern Arizona, flash floods is one of our biggest concerns. So as we start to see our afternoon pop-up storms, if you will, and they intensify, we will start seeing flash flooding in a lot of our dry washes if they were able to dry up since the wet winter. But if they aren't dry already, then we're going to see more water increase through that side. So turn around, don't drown is a big one to see. We also, knowing the difference between a forecast, a watch, and a warning, so keeping an eye out on the weather. And we are one of America's playgrounds, so heading to a swimming hole, checking the weather radios, checking it before you leave your house, once you get there, and constantly monitoring it. Just because it's nice here doesn't mean Flagstaff or somewhere north of us did not get a bunch of rain. That's going to come down the canyon through places like Slide Rock, Grasshopper Point, Manzanita, anything along that corridor. From a home safety perspective, a lot of us have flat roofs up here, getting up and cleaning out the scuppers to make sure that the rain can drain so you don't have a roof collapse. Again, tying down all of your furniture, getting your trees trimmed up, not only helps with the wildfire threat that comes with the dry lightning strikes that we're probably going to see in between the monsoons and everything else to go with that, but sensible space will also help in preparations for the monsoon season as well.
Questions? Thank you very much. Chief Mazulis, you're back on.
I am. With that, if there aren't any questions for Chief Coyle or Chief Booth, we'll move on to Chief Bukowski and Baker.
There are not, and you've got the floor to introduce them.
All right, so based on the slide, Buzz's picture's first, so if Buzz wants to take the floor, let's go.
All right. You are up.
We're all here, it's too late now, right? Chair, members of the board, thank you. I was avert to board meetings in the past, and I can't say, even though I found out I felt quite late that we were going to do this. I'm excited to be here. I think the road before Sedona Fire is the best. The prospects are better than I've ever seen them, even coming from 1997 when I started here. So I'm happy to be here. Happy to be here with this board. Glad that Chief Mazulis and Chief Coyle are risking a little with our new proposed plan. So thank you. Just a little bit about me. Some of you I know. I started here as a volunteer in 1997, and then did pretty much almost every position except for fire chief, though different versions, including a bit of time division chief with ops under Chief Cage. This feels different than any of those times, I will say. Had the opportunity to work in each role from volunteer firefighter through the transition time here. growth opportunity for us all. A lot of hesitation to change, right? I think the daily staffing, when I started, was similar to Chief Coyle. I think we could, maximum of 6, but we could go to something like 4 or 5 for the same square miles that we covered today. And that was probably 3,500 calls at the time, or 3,200, so significantly less, but not less. So 1 or 2 engines pretty much running from West Sedona and Uptown for the whole district. And none of that's to say that we have it all figured out, right? And that's why these roles, as I see them, are exciting because it's just really a new perspective, new eyes on good work laid before us. Even with, there's some trepidation even today. Some of the things we want to improve upon, those people are here. I'm going to do EMS. Chief Mazulis is on the phone, right? But I want it to be better than the way we have it, and that's not questioning his ability or prior work. It's just because we can all improve. My intent today is to give a brief overview of my new role, explain the restructuring a little bit of our new DC roles. I imagine Chief Baker will get into that as well. Describe and try to sense make of the division of labor as we see it today. And I'll tell you, I'm already thinking that there's some changes that might have to take place as we inherit roles, because there's a lot moving when we walked into those offices. And then talk to you about the opportunities as I see them and some of the challenges. And then, of course, I'd like to open it up to any questions. I know you'll have some. I don't intend to answer them here because I don't know them yet. And also learn from you as you see things as taxpayers and experienced professionals in the workforce, both in the fire service and outside the fire service. So at the end, we'll open it for that. I don't know if we want to do that after both of us, but however you guys want to do that.
Play by ear.
Okay. So I think it's important to point out at the outset that we've been calling this, and I think it describes it well, it's an iterative process. So our version today, the version we've tried to come up with, it requires change and adaptation as we move forward, as we evaluate if it's even working. Some of those roles require heavier lifts than we probably anticipated. Changing dynamics of the community, the needs of the general fire service at large, they're going to cause us to course direct. And then our duties would have to reflect those changes as well so we can meet those needs. So this has not been tested. I've been in my position, today is the second day. I did 3/4 of a day last Monday, and then went to the conference with you all, and then began yesterday. Chief Baker's been here for maybe 5 days longer than me, so he should have it all figured out by now. So more questions than answers from us, but, and that's not hedging our bet or, like deferring the responsibility. It's just we're learning as we go. DC Baker and I are on a fact-finding, learning phase to try and just understand, like I said, what we inherited. Today was the first time I got to meet with Matt Spinelli, and we didn't even touch on the things that he's doing. So that's a good example. Additionally, we both have duties that are carrying over from our administrative, budgetary, or ancillary duties as battalion chiefs, because that transition with the new BCs hasn't quite happened either. As you know, one of them's broken. We have an acting BC in there. There's some duties that we haven't even transitioned out of yet, mostly because we're new to the position as well. And those require quality transition. I don't want to dump something like facilities, someone, or some of the budgetary concerns that Chief Baker has. We want to do a good job with that as well. And as they're coming up to speed as battalion chiefs, one of our roles that I imagine we'll both go into is mentoring them actively and intentionally. Our plan is twice a week to be over there, one of us switching off, to be available to them, do our work as DCs from there, and then being able to answer questions, go over critique calls with them, brainstorm, and just that actively mentor, improve their transition as well, because that's a broad jump from captain to battalion chief. Tons of responsibilities and growing responsibilities daily. So the process, I don't know how much, I imagine the Chief Mazulis and Coyle described the process of us getting here, but really quickly, we met, we presented, we wrote a proposal on how to improve the training program in SFD. Then we presented that to Keona, Chief Coyle, and Chief Missoula. And out of that process, many things came to light. Two different perspectives, those same goals in mind, two different approaches, but many of the shared beliefs and areas that we need to improve, just the how we're going to go about them, different tenor, different tempo. And frankly, Jordan has skills that I don't have and strengths I don't have, and vice versa. So out of that, they offered to us to collaborate, our first collaborative iterative process, to see if we can share some of the training division duties as well as Chief Mizoulis's old position, and see if we can meld those together based on the timing of the needs of the organization, our skills, and our proposals that we gave. My proposal was, I don't know, I think both of ours were 30-something pages long. That is not what we're doing today. I would open that up to you, but I would tell you to discount much of what's in there because the game has changed, because we're sharing responsibilities and gleaning new perspective from one another of how to go about some of our problems or some of our areas of improvement. So we met and we sort of horse traded a little bit. Some of it was very natural based on our work that we had done for our proposal, both of our proposals. My duties, and we'll go into them specifically in a moment, tend to be more future planning. Jordan, and I'm trying not to speak for him, but we've already collaborated and we've worked together for so long that, forgive me, and correct any of this if I'm wrong. We've done some pretty major projects together over the years. Anyway, Jordan, he's probably better, I would say, at some of the imminent problems, the performance issues today, being on the ground today. Those are wonderful and fun and the things that the fire department is about, but the needs as I saw them were more future focused beyond that, evaluating how we're evaluating people, evaluating the needs, performing a more robust needs assessment based on community needs, the evolving needs of our district, based on the true call criteria from data gleaned from like GIS and our ESO reporting, really diving deep in that to see where we should be training, what we can improve upon, but more processes, improving the processes that then lead to human performance improvements, and really just a sustainable product that someone else can come after us and sort of pull that off the shelf and say, how do I do this? It should be known. Michael's done amazing work, and in my opinion, he never quite had the authority to be the guy that can thump a little bit. Well, now we have that between Chief Baker and I. Just the fact of rank is going to streamline some of those processes. He's well respected, of course, and the processes are great. Our training is quality, but we can all improve upon it. I think my view is back up and improve the processes from start to finish with things like a needs assessment. We've already discussed how to do that on the fly. The train is moving, and evaluating and changing the train that's moving with all the regulatory requirements and training requirements that are already in process while the trucks are still going out is going to be a tricky thing for us for sure. So getting out there, while maybe Jordan does a multi-company drill, he may be evaluating the people, I may be evaluating the drill. Make sure that's the drill that suits our needs currently, that the evaluative measures, like the score sheets, if you will, if those are appropriate to industry standards and the needs of our district. That's kind of how, in the couple brief conversations we've had, I see us playing some of those things out. And please stop me at any time. I know I'm going. Obviously, we're both very passionate about this, and I know it'll work. It just might not look what we think it'll be. But we got together and talked about our division of labor, then proposed it back to Chief Missoula and Chief Coyle, and it was well received. We did a few more discussions on what made sense. There's a span of control issue, of course. Bringing on new BCs. There's wholesale change in our organization like never before, which is displayed with the recent promotions. That's the most I can remember in a single board meeting, hiring and promotions. That's a lot of change at once. So, trying to figure out how to transition well, while also make these changes that we all know are needed. The Division of Labor was to be guided by a few principles that we came up with, mostly directed by Chief Quell and Chief Mizoulis, that it would be a mission-focused collaboration between us. Primarily, I mean those training initiatives that need to change, because I'll be the EMS guy. That's just the singular focus of a single point of contact. That's very important. It's definitely something that I would rather do than Chief Baker, though he would have done it if we told him, to, of course. Like, we're not going to necessarily collaborate with this sort of training duo as much there, except glean the experiences and the ideas of how to train more. But the duties, as Chief Mizoulis was doing, would rest with me. So we're going to, back to the mission-focused collaboration, that's one tenet of our, how we're going to view the Division of Labor, or how we did. Delegating tasks to control the span of control and time management to other district officers, sort of giving more to the company officers, more responsibility, more authority to train their own crews, improve their own crews. That's a basic tenet and a mechanism to help us control our span. Like, just going to be a heavy lift to make these changes and to manage these programs. The list is long. So we have to deliberately delegate, deliberately identify our up-and-comers, the people with certain skill sets. It's not volunteerism. It's we're seeking you out. We're going to see your skills. We're going to train you. We're going to help you get there. You're going to help us with this for the betterment of you, but also the organization. That's a tenet. Open-minded flexibility, that our plan is, like I said, iterative, that we're going to deliberately meet and admit where our plan might not be sound. If it's not working, we've pledged to change it. And even if that ruffles others, which I don't think it will, because that was one of the tenets of us entering into it. And finally, having a mindset for improving performance and processes across the board. That seems very nebulous. How do two guys do one job? Within that, we may be collaborating on larger training initiatives, task books, the recent testing, the onboarding orientation for new firefighters, things like those are large initiatives. There's still going to be a point of contact, sort of the RP, the responsible party, the key holder, I think was a term we tossed around, so that our organization knows who to contact, so that our leadership knows who to ask about it. But we know that we're going to work together on those things, and it's really already begun, even yesterday morning. So while it seems nebulous and you can't have two people steering a ship, the way we're working on that is deliberately evaluating if the process is working, having a single key holder or reporting party or contact person, and then pledging that flexible collaboration amongst us, which I think we're pretty good at already. The plan is expected to be revisited, evaluated, revised for effectiveness to make sure we're balancing the workload. So we called one Division Chief A. It's listed as some pretty long names here that I think we just threw down because it captured the feeling of each of our distinctive positions. Though those are definitely not something you'd want on some letterhead or anything. That's just it's more, those are descriptors at this point. So Division Chief A, for this version is me. I'm charged with oversight of EMS, GIS, and drone program, which we've combined into one because there's definitely some crossover there and some better utilization that even Matthew Spinelli has found at recent conferences, where we can use the drone better to tell our story, both internally and externally. The communication center has been something that the operations portion of that, as far as SFD is concerned, been something that I've been involved with since we changed dispatch centers. So with the new management at Cottonwood Public Safety Communications Center, I'm going to continue that. And really, I feel that Sedona Fire is a driver in that group, becoming more regional minded, so that we're responding together and not sort of against one another, which is how the fragmented dispatching is now. It's great people doing their best, but it's a system problem that we can make it more integrated for sure. It'll never be as robust as the Phoenix automatic mutual aid system, but we can make huge strides in that. And so that falls within my purview. Now I feel like we have the time to attack some of those things is the difference. I really feel like we have time to do that now. Whereas a Shift BC, implementing those things is very difficult while you're still responding and managing crews. So I'm excited about that. The HSO and ISO, that's health and safety officer, infection control officer duties. That was something that fell under Chief Mizoulis, and most of that's required by law. And also on here, it's incorporated into the incident safety officer. That's some of you are well aware, just our officers go through incident safety officer training. We require it for captain's testing. So we hope to make that a more robust and intentional program as well. Behavioral health component of our overall wellness also falls to me. That's protecting our mental well-being of all our employees, from office staff to the responders. Mental health is a global. We're all humans. We all have minds that can be fragile at times and need help. So, and one exciting thing, if I may, today we rolled out Start Moving On, the trauma counseling service with Dr. Debbie Ritterbush, and her team came today. And we met with several crews, explained the services there, and it was very well received by all the crews. Very affable group of people that even brought a therapy dog in around the stations. We'll be visiting the rest of the stations, including meeting with admin this week. Similar program to what Central Arizona Fire and Medical does, where they actually do ride-alongs with the counselors. The counselors come in so that they see what we do. They have a trauma focus so that we do not scare our counselors when we go and tell them what is on our minds as the result of being first responders, which has happened. But they also do a lot of work in prevention, training our peer support folks, and the relationship, after one day, is already thriving, and that's an exciting piece. I hope to bring more training things in as well. All of these things require training of some sort for myself, but also for our folks. And that one was something that I actually was, at 4 o'clock, I left there to come here. So great initiative. It's within the budget. Chief Mizoulis, I imagine, presented it, I believe. And I thank you for it. It's already been really well received. We've had many resources, so no coherence to those resources, and not a lot of understanding of, in an algorithmic way, of where to go first for what. So we sort of throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks. This will give us a central entry point. And they're going to collaborate with our new EAP, from everything from a trauma intervention where they can be here within the hour to daily, I'm having trouble with my finances, my wife, my kids, whatever. That's open to our entire organization, responders and support staff and their families, which is one. The next thing is the hiring and assessment centers. Again, I may be the person who's the point of contact, but we've already been collaborating, mostly because we're testing soon, and I was in Phoenix last week. Chief Baker and I were already bouncing things back and forth, very open and honest. We haven't quite disagreed yet, but I think it's going to be okay when we do. Promotional test engineer promotions, captains, battalion chiefs, those are also larger lifts that we're going to rely on multiple people beyond us. Obviously an HR component to that is beyond our scope that we need to integrate in there too as well. But also relieving some of that load from Keona, because we'll have 2 people here that can help facilitate those tests and make them a success. Position task books, that's a career preparation tool, sort of a progression succession planning tool. It prepares you for the next level above where you are. It also prepares you for your current level in terms of entry level. So the probationary firefighters get a task book that has various tasks they have to perform that are the requisite functions, knowledge, skills, behaviors of that job. So that is a piece that has not remained contemporary in our organization. As the world moves and our requirements change, we haven't updated those. So a complete overhaul is underway or will be. That's one that's an interesting example of something that's underway and progressing. So a person has that task book and it's half finished, and two new guys are going to come in and go, well, maybe not that one. And so we're discussing how to transition a person who's done great work on that trajectory that we defined for them, pulling the rug out from under them, but preparing them to take on the new task book and transition well. Like we talked about that yesterday or today. The special operations training would more be an oversight position for me. Battalion Chief Eric Lewis will take the helm on that, much like Chief Baker did when he was a battalion chief. But the training, any training component that he would need support or leverage, that's a piece that's on here, but it's not as heavy a lift. There's very capable people that have already been delegated that. And then finally, fleet, which frankly I know very little about. There's a meet to learn component there like none of the others. I've never been a truck guy, a fleet guy, or whatever. I drove them and responded on them, and that's it. So Mike and I will be meeting. Chief Mazulis has a wealth of knowledge, and that's in general a program or a function that was usually run with many committee members and input as far as those. So I don't have to be the expert on that, which is great. So I have to admit, I could go forever on this. So I really want to temper. I know Jordan and I were like, I don't know how long. What are you going to do? And so whoever went first is kind of feeling this out. But I would like to just add a couple last things for intention that I hope tells you a little bit about what we're after, if that's okay. Dory deferred her time to us, I think. So a few of my intentions and principles, and I know that these are shared with Jordan, that we may express them differently. To provide exceptional, noteworthy service to the community. We already do this, but one thing I learned at the conference last week was from the Mesa Public Schools superintendent that I told Chief Coyle about, told Chris Ahern about, Jordan. It really struck me. There's a lot of times a hesitancy, not just to change, but if people feel that the change is inflicted upon them instead of for their benefit. So one thing this gentleman said was, you don't have to be sick to get better. So there's no judgment inherent to improvement. There's just a need for improvement that we all know is there. We've all wished someone would do something about it. So that's an overarching intention of mine in all these areas, not just the ones that are training focused. Improving every process, even the ones Chief Mazulis is going to pass to me when he gets off vacation. Also, there's a few guiding principles from my proposal, and then I'll stop and we can have some questions, or we'll defer to Jordan. Some of the principles within my initial proposal were to align training and development in our organization with our current expectations and needs. I think the expectations and needs of the community, of our internal people, and you, the board, who represents that community, I don't think we've maintained stride with them in a lot of areas. It's a fast-paced organization, a lot of growth. The community has changed vastly. Our core services have changed. The distances we travel and the complexity of calls has really changed in the last decade, I'd say 6 years. So it's difficult to maintain stride with that in the training and development of our people. So what I'd like to do is analyze it all, more of a proper needs assessment, to align those things in all areas, align our training and development in all areas. We want to focus on, or I do, quality over quantity or compliance. The compliance stuff is easy. We want to have real, valuable training that can be learned today and applied with and for the public tomorrow, that will keep our crews safer, and not just training because we have to, not just training because some regulatory body told us to. Training that is not a waste of our employees' time, that has true value for them, realistic training. A mindset of continuous improvement should all be evidence-based. Training and development resources in the world that are far superior to anything the fire service is applying. We all know that. And the fire service, in my opinion, needs to stop listening to itself so much. There's great things happening in the world, and we need to cross-pollinate some of that and use that here. We're going to rely upon our internal and external experts. We have great people that work here. We hire for quality. And frankly, that's a mechanism of span of control also. We can't do it ourselves. So we need our officers to move into more responsible roles that we're going to define, prepare, and follow up with them on. Not just launch them and say, hope you win, but we're going to allow them and help them get there. And then inherent to all of this is accountability and ownership. Even this presentation here is me telling you a thing that I hope to do that you can always say, hey, Buzz, did you do that thing you said? And I like that part. I like that tension and that little bit of anxiety that creates. That's why I appreciate the position. And Chief Coyle and Mazulis are not treating this lightly, which is evidenced here. And I'll tell you, there's a few people that can really get you motivated and make you raise your own bar. And I'd say it's Ed and Jason for sure. They've got our number. We've worked with them for 20 plus years. And they know that we're all probably frustrated with the same things, and that we all are on the same page and want to fix them. I appreciate that. I know that went all over the map. Had some really nice notes, but I got a little passionate early on. So I thank you for your time, and no apologies. This is who I am. This is what we hope to do. And I would gladly give you the presentation and the report, though I would ask you, we can't really be held accountable to that, because that was a single person trying that endeavor. And we inherited a lot of other jobs since then too, so it's that. But thank you for your time.
All right. We do have questions, but we're going to hold them to the.
Yeah, just say it pleases the board.
Yeah, however you want to go about it. Thank you.
All right, tough
All right,
act
man.
to follow. All right, Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you for inviting me this evening. To try to stay on track, I wrote basically a narrative of everything I wanted to tell you so I didn't miss anything, and hopefully I'll stay on track and be open to questions, although we may not have the answers right now, but we will get them for you or provide the information as we can. So again, thank you for inviting me this evening, and more importantly, thank you for entrusting me and providing me the opportunity to utilize my strengths for the betterment of our agency. My intent is to continue moving our organization forward and building on the foundation that those who came before me have already laid. Training Officer Duran has done a great job and has been very welcoming in my first 2 days working with him, today being day 2. I've been an employee of the district for 20 plus years and have seen a lot of change in my time here. I started as a reserve firefighter while working full-time at the Verde Valley Fire District. Once a full-time firefighter here in Sedona, I achieved promoting to the ranks of engineer, captain, battalion chief, and now division chief. This was not an easy path by any stretch of the imagination and took a lot of hard work. A lot of hard work on my part, and also those that took me under their wing, assisting in my development as a person and a professional, 2 of the individuals sitting on each side of me tonight. By taking this route, I feel I've built a sound knowledge base for each position, which has afforded me the opportunity to assist every crew I've served to meet their full potential. I also learned the importance of returning the favor and assisting those that have a strong desire in professional development and assisting wherever and whenever I can help facilitate change. This is where my true passion lies. Next to serving the public, developing future leaders in our organization has been my highest priority since I began my ascent through the ranks. This has been my #1 goal since becoming an engineer, serving as an informal leader on my crews. Then later promoting to captain, I was only able to increase my sphere of influence and provide formal guidance and direction to each crew I was able to serve. Later, serving as a battalion chief only magnified this sphere of influence and allowed for the opportunity to reach an entire shift, creating an environment of selflessness and teamwork that enabled an entire shift to work together and help each other obtain their personal and professional goals. My vision in this new position is to reinforce that same culture to the entire organization and build on the great things each shift is already accomplishing. We have several extremely talented people in our organization, and I've challenged myself in this new role to exploit each of their strengths for the betterment of the organization, public, and all our employees. In addition to this, I want to identify employees with untapped and unrecognized potential for passions for areas in fire and EMS that we've yet to utilize and guide them to their fullest potential as a person and as a professional. In working through the assessment center that Chief Wachowski talked about, for the position of division chief, it was easily identifiable that no one individual was going to be able to accomplish everything that Chief Wachowski and I were able to identify. It was obvious there needed to be a shift in approach and process regarding these things we have that we have always done to affect the real and needed change, meeting our desired results. Again, thank you, Chief Coyle and Chief Mazulis, for recognizing this and not being afraid to change the status quo. Training Officer Duran has done a great job in his role for the past 10+ years as a training officer, and it will take some time to learn the processes and procedures he's established. I look forward to sitting with him and learning what has and has not worked, and more importantly, why or why not. It will be important to fully understand what each position encompasses to ensure effectiveness and accountability moving forward. So how did we get here? Again, thank you to Chief Coyle and Chief Mazulis for taking an innovative approach to conducting a needs assessment and filling identified gaps in our organization. While there were individuals attempting to fill these gaps, it was obvious there needed to be an assessment and evaluation of current effectiveness of roles and responsibilities for each position. Along with this, the organization had an opportunity to reestablish the expectations that have been placed on our battalion chiefs. Since 2020, both Chief Wachowski and I were in those roles, the workload, call volume, and daily duties have continued to increase to a level it made it nearly impossible for shift BCs to train with their crews. Recognizing this, the four of us decided that each of the new positions would take some of the weight with us as we transition to our new roles as division chiefs. This should ultimately free up our operational battalion chiefs to train and interact more with their crews, benefiting the entire organization. Professional development and succession planning are where my true passions ultimately exist in our organization, and I hope the above have reaffirmed this with each of you. So going into my roles and responsibilities that we've clearly identified, and as Chief Wachowski pointed out, will be the point of contact for or the key holder for being held accountable for each of these. These are the areas of responsibility that I've taken on with the new position. So after lots of communication and collaboration and identifying specific roles and responsibilities, this will eliminate duplication of effort or redundancy for each of these. As Chief Wachowski spoke of, the minimum company standards and individual company standards for crews. So the intent for this is to hold quarterly trainings, observing crews out conducting drills and showcasing their preparedness and efficiency. Observing this will add a new form of accountability and formality that has not been present and is much needed. Enabling crews to track performance and gauge improvement during future drills will provide a clear path for improvement and increased readiness and response. Second area will be extrication and electric vehicle training. So create a standard plan training that occurs annually. With this new technology being the electric vehicles and more electric vehicles on the roadways, it's imperative we train for future encounters with these situations involving extrication and vehicle fires. We recently responded to an electric vehicle fire in Oak Creek Canyon that required nearly 18,000 gallons of water to attempt to suppress and isolate and confine to that vehicle of origin. There are more effective ways to handle these situations, and we will continue to explore and action them as they are identified. And since we found out we were taking on these new roles and responsibilities, I've already looked into a multitude of areas and found some really good options for us that we'll be moving forward on, hopefully relatively quickly, and getting some demo equipment here at the district for crews to be able to practice on. Another area of responsibility will be the driver's training to include the ROVA, which is the Recreational Off-Highway Vehicle Association. It's a body, an agency that standardizes training and certifies drivers for these UTVs. So create a standardized process for annual training to include both classroom and hands-on training for all operational employees of the district for driver's training. This event is most likely one of the highest risks with the highest frequency of all events we encounter. So every time those trucks roll out the road, emergency incidents, non-emergency incidents, that's a very high-risk event, traffic. You're all aware of the traffic in Sedona. Responding code 3 just elevates that. And so in my opinion, we need to standardize that into an annual training to include both classroom and hands-on portions and get that known throughout the district that at this month, we'll be training on driver's training annually, no questions asked. We need to be more active in preparing and carrying out standardized training. So that's one example of that. ROVA is an adopted NWGC standard we utilize for our wildland program to meet the needs of off-district assignments involving UTVs. This benefits in-district response as more and more situations arise that require UTV utilization. We're getting more and more backcountry rescues that require these UTVs, and will be extremely beneficial, again, to standardize that process, and Training Officer Duran's done a good job trying to get each shift through once every 3 years to make sure everybody's qualified through that ROVA agency to operate these UTVs. Fire suppression. So my vision is to continue to meet and exceed external standards recommendations set by outside agencies, as well as internal standards we've set that go beyond basic requirements. This will be in the form of tasks assigned in position task books, which Chief Wachowski talked about, for firefighters, engineers, captains, and battalion chiefs. Additionally, looking for new innovative approaches to responding to complex situations as they arise and adjusting tactics and strategies as necessary. Again, as Chief Wachowski stated, the fire service is very reluctant to change a lot of times. And I think it's important to get a fresh set of eyes in every once in a while, see where we can affect change, increase those standards for ourselves, even though those external standards may be met. I think we can always go above and beyond that and do more and do better. Reestablishing battalion level training, which would include live fire drills at our regional training center, while exploring and expanding regional training opportunities with neighboring agencies. Therefore, strengthening and increasing response capacity and capabilities. So in my opinion, we can do more, again, with a lot of our regional partners. We respond on calls with them, and it just happened a couple days ago, where we respond out of district to Copper Canyon, Verde Valley, Cottonwood, sometimes Jerome if they have a high-risk technical rescue. We often don't train with those individuals. So I think we can do more, and I think we can do a lot better and definitely more frequent to get those crews familiar with each other, and therefore the first time they're meeting each other isn't during an emergency scene. Another area of responsibility will be the promotional academies. So the idea, and I've talked to Chief Wachowski a lot about this will be one of those areas. It's going to be a heavy lift, a big lift, where collaboration between he and I are going to ultimately need to take place to make sure this is successful. But these promotional academies will allow for the opportunity to expand and increase the knowledge base of those already in positions, in some cases, being task book qualified or listed, or both, and those with the intent on filling these positions in the future. So people that are looking at becoming an engineer, a captain, or battalion chief, they've initiated a task book. They meet the education requirements to test, with the intent to test, put on a promotional academy for them where we take a set number of days and run them through basically the roles and responsibilities for each position, to include HR, to include payroll in some cases, bringing in fire suppression training, bringing in EMS training, whatever we define as practical and useful in those academies will be something we'll collaborate with each other and then start holding those on a more frequent basis for these individuals. Let's see. This will assist in standardizing process and procedure while increasing strengths of those intending to test for future promotional exams and ultimately being more successful in those assessment centers. Next area of responsibility will be new hire orientation and onboarding. Training Officer Duran does that right now and pulls a lot of individuals from the floor that are our subject matter experts in each area of their responsibility, and they assist with this onboarding and orientation, 3-week orientation right now. So this is an extreme passion of mine, and a real measurable change often starts at the lowest levels. This is one of the items that Chief Wachowski talked about, horse trading with each other, and this is one that I was really passionate about, and I really wanted to take this on because I believe we can affect the most change at the lowest level. Day one, when these firefighters hit the door, let them know how important this is. A lot of us have poured hours into this place, blood, sweat, and tears, literally, and to stress that importance to them and make sure they're representing the organization in public to the best light possible, I think is extremely important. So instilling in the new hires the pride and appreciation for the title of firefighter with Sedona Fire begins on day one. Looking forward to expanding and adapting how we currently run the new hire orientation and collaborating with Chief Wachowski on the new hire testing process to ensure the highest quality of candidates are selected for our organization. Additionally, looking at ways to increase our hiring pools, therefore increasing the number of potential candidates for selection. So how do we advertise more? How do we get the word out that we're hiring more? We talked about it yesterday, and we've been talking about it for months. And so we've got some great ideas that are coming up. So again, another area that we're collaborating on to really highlight Sedona Fire and get the word out that we're hiring, because we want to draw from all over the state, in many cases out of state if we can, to pull those potential best candidates for selection. The wellness program, which is different than the ISO or HSO. So the wellness program is our physical fitness program. I've been tasked with that for the last 6 or 7 years. So I'll be bringing this with me to ease some of the workload on the new battalion chiefs. Having been managing this program for the last 6 to 7 years and looking to expand the program to include quarterly wellness letters, and on-the-job injury statistics to our membership for education and prevention opportunities. So I've been working with firefighter Feeney, who volunteered. He's one of our up-and-comers, if you will, in the organization, who's volunteered to assist in taking a larger role and more responsibility with the program. So ultimately, I oversee the program, manage the budget for the program, and he's really the one that carries out a lot of our ideas with the crew, and I assist where needed. So I've been working with him and targeting specific areas of prevention for these quarterly newsletters and educational information. I've already begun working with Kiona and HR, ways that we can heighten awareness for on-the-job injuries, the type of body part that was injured, the location where it happened, without releasing any personal information, therefore increasing prevention and possibly begin reducing our premiums for worker comp. So I think if we can get that information out in front of the individuals with the cost associated with that injury, it'll really hit home with them like, wow, a sprained ankle is a sprained ankle, but when you look at the overall numbers when I'm out of work for 3 or 4 weeks, here's the true impact to the district. Here's the true impact to staffing and dollars. And if we can get that information out in front of them, my hope is that we can raise that awareness, therefore providing some educational means on how to prevent those injuries and decrease those numbers ultimately will be the measure of success on that program. And as many of you know, I currently manage the ASHER program, the Active Shooter Hostile Event Response Program. Again, very passionate about that. I'm taking that with me. So I'll be bringing this program with me for oversight and overall program management like I do now. Again, reducing the workload on the new BCs, but I'll continue working with Battalion Chief Lewis on program development and educational opportunities. BC Lewis has done a great job in assisting with the program and policy development, and he'll be instrumental in continuing to move this program forward. This opportunity will tie directly into relationships built with outside agencies, including law enforcement, for large-scale trainings and drills. Ultimately, increasing our preparedness regionally will be our priority. And last but not least, the wildland program. So much like special operations, I've been charged with the wildland program for the last 5 to 6 years, the oversight and management. However, then Captain Miranda, now BC Miranda, is one of our subject matter experts along with Chief Coyle in the agency. And I realize that he's very strong suited to run that program. But ultimately, this will stay with Battalion Chief Miranda as one of SFD's subject matter experts. The intent on remaining involved in my portion with this program will ultimately lie in assistance for planned events and trainings. Allowing BC Miranda to have overall responsibility and accountability for the program management will be priority. So there's an accountability piece with that, with my position supporting in scheduling and carrying out planned trainings and events on and off district. I've worked directly with BC Miranda for the past 6 years on the program, and he does a great job in managing, facilitating, and expanding our wildland program. Assisting on planned events and trainings will only free him up to become more involved in day-to-day operations with his shift. So in closing, I truly appreciate each of you taking a vested interest in the roles and responsibilities for these 2 positions and look forward to continuing learning as I get settled in. I also appreciate, value, and respect each of your experiences in business and public service. Those are all valuable skill sets that I'm interested in hearing about and ultimately learning from, therefore increasing my own knowledge base and enabling me to be more successful in my new role. I hope the above information has provided you with some insight into who I am, what I've accomplished, and my vision for moving forward in my new role. Identifying specific roles and responsibilities is vital in measuring overall program management and effectiveness while clearly establishing a key holder responsible for each discipline's production and success. So thank you.
Thank you.
So if I could just kind of summarize real quick and then give it back to you guys, and I promise I'll be quicker than those guys, because I know I say real quick and sometimes I'm really not. But it really is. So, you know, one of the things, because they talked about a lot of the pieces, and I just kind of wanted to go up one more level to make sure that you guys had that whole picture, and then you ask your questions in that context. So each one of us spoke about it, easing the BC's workload to allow them to lead more effectively. That's one of the priorities. Addressing tactical problems, those near-term problems, and then investing in the abilities required to fight future wars, fight future problems, whatever they are. And the other part that was talked to a little bit is also disseminating tasks and responsibilities through supplemental job descriptions down and out. You know, there's opportunities for captains, other people to take on responsibilities and lead at their level that especially Chief Lukowski is going to have to utilize if he's going to be successful, or he'll become task saturated with this new thing. You know, it was General Krulak, I think the 31st comment on the Marine Corps, that said Marines have two responsibilities: to win battles and to build Marines. And you know, I see that a lot of the two responsibilities these guys have, and there's some tension there, right? Because winning battles, as that tactical effort, the time horizon is different, the urgency is different. Tactical problems have immediate resolutions. You know, you have to deal with current challenges, focus on short-term solutions. You know, Baker goes out there as a stopwatch when he's watching them do those things. There's a right now thing. Buzz has figured out a better way to build the whole system so they're able to execute better when they're out there being timed on that stopwatch. You know, there's also tension between resource allocation, especially when there's scarcity of resources. At least with funding, there always is. You know, there's a need to evolve technology and doctrine to deal with not only today's problems, but also to prepare in the future and do it in such a manner that you can bring people along. Because even if you, like, you know, and I've done this before, but I've done both these guys before, I can have a very clear idea about what the future is. And if I don't help people get from where they are right now to where I am, not like I'm in the right spot, but at least show them how I got from wherever they thought I was to here, it's a problem. And that takes deliberate effort. And that's something that by splitting these tasks, I think we will do a better job. And there's two other points to make and then give back to them, but the organizational culture and mindset. So addressing tactical problems today, it necessitates efficiency, operational efficiency, getting out the door quick, all that kind of, those related is, and establish protocols and leveraging proven methodologies. We don't experiment on game day. You know, we do what we know is proven. Preparing for the future challenges is experimentation and adaptability. So we try new things. We do that stuff. And so between the two of them, I think we're going to do a good job of saying, hey, this is what you need to do to prepare today. We can try that and we'll see if that works, and then maybe we'll adopt it, but distinguish between the two. What's a practice day for something where we might run a play in the future, and what's game day, and what do we need to be good at for game day? And then finally, the complexity, uncertainty. Tactical problems are context specific, and they usually have a pretty clear solution. And a lot of the way that we learn in the fire service is through repetition, right? You get experience, you get salt, you get better at doing those sorts of things. Future problems have different scenarios that need to unravel. We were just talking about with hiring, 3 different scenarios on what we may do in the future for hiring. And so we do that, those variables, the threats, and the technologies that may be involved are going to be very different. So I think at one level, say we have 2 training officers now, they're focused on different parts of training. It may be somewhat accurate, but it's also somewhat misleading, I would submit, because we have a tactical and a strategic level. I didn't want to say that. We have a current and a future level focus, and then we have both of them having to develop enough strategic acumen to be able to have the operational ability to operate back and forth between them. And it's going to be challenging. It's going to be fun, but it's a lift. So back to y'all.
It's going to be busy. It sounds like.
I'll ask Chief Mazulis if you're still there. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, can you hear me all right, Chairman?
Yes.
What was just presented to you between Chiefs Coyle, Baker, and Lukowski is a big reason why I had the confidence taken on the job of fire chief. And as I think they articulated, and I will again commit to you, we're all kind of long in the tooth, and in the sense of our Sedona fire career. And our primary goal is to set this organization up for future success while refining process so that it is transferable. And I just want to give thanks to you guys for presenting tonight. Thank you.
Okay, all right. With that, I'd like to open it up to the board for any kind of questions or comments that you'd like to address as a result of their speech.
I,
Want to start it?
yeah, I'll start it. So, first of all, let me tell you that I'm the one you can blame for this, because I pushed, because I've been hearing from Chief Missoula's about the wonderful things that were happening, sort of kind of behind the scenes in all this transition. Thank you for doing a great job of presenting in detail, and it's great to hear. I will tell you that I have a few concerns. They're not in any way deal breakers. They're more based on my experience. Number one is I know you have key holders, but how you're going to communicate the key holder to the average firefighter, to the citizen, to the board member, who's the key holder that I go to if I have this concern or that concern, becomes really, really important. So just take it as a piece of feedback. I think how you communicate and what you communicate, and in a way that people can hang on to it and understand it, because I wrote down all the things you said and I like it, but I'm still like, okay, if I have this specific, where do I go? So just a suggestion. Similarly, I think I would just say, Chief Lukowski, I support you on the importance of needs assessment, and I've watched organizations get hidebound by the need to do needs assessment. So balance, please, on that. You talk about we're a fast-moving organization, and I believe in that. But I think sometimes you have to balance the needs assessment with what you know from whether it's a GIS form or your own experience or whatever. So just a couple of comments, but I'm very excited to see this evolve. And we'll probably have lots of questions and comments in the future. But congratulations to both of you, and I just think I look forward to the innovation, and I will keep my fingers crossed because I know how big the list is.
Thank you. Scott, do you have anything for us? Or
Not
for them?
yet. Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Janet?
I enjoyed the presentation, and I am looking forward to you implementing program and all the changes that will happen, because I see them as being positive. And it looks like you're ready to toss out whatever doesn't work, even if you're trying something brand new and you see it's not working. So this is all very positive to me, and it looks like it will only improve the function of our entire district.
I appreciate that, and if I may, there's a sense of freedom from Chief Missoula and Chief Coyle to trip up a little bit to learn, you know, win or learn, and that freedom has been expressed the entire time. Let's do this. We think we're right. Let's admit we might not be. Let's
That's
try
hard.
this.
That's
Let's
hard
move
to
on.
do, too.
Let's evaluate. Be deliberate and intentional about evaluating. So I appreciate that part too, is the ability to can't have agility if you don't trip up and fall down sometimes, right? So I appreciate that too. I sense that, and it's been expressed by the leadership here for sure, and now from leadership here today from you guys. So it gives a freedom. There's a freedom there to try things and move the ball forward.
One of the ways that I talked about that I like thinking about is like the FBI's hostage rescue team, when they show up on a scene that they're gonna take over, the moment they're in charge, they have to have a 10% solution. So if the bad guys start shooting hostages, they gotta have a plan in place. But on day 3, they don't have a 10% solution. You know, they have a 70% or a 90% or 100% solution. And so if we think about this, I think this is much better than a 10% solution, but knowing that you're gonna iterate off of that as you move forward and gain, it better get better. The more these guys are in the role, if you know, man, we need to go, Wall Street or something if we figured out the best plan just by thinking about it. And then we executed and it was the best it could ever be. But yeah, a 10% solution, it's the way I like to look at it.
I did think of something, because there's so many columns in here and the things that you guys are doing, and I think it's great. I wished I'd had that when I was in my career. And, especially for, I don't know about the whole board, but, you know, we probably run into a number of citizens out there, and they want answers. And they're throwing all the questions at you. And what I'm seeing here is now, you know, some of these columns that I understand, and when they're in force and they're being done, it gives us, I don't want to say power, but at least the education to say, hey, I do have, you know, some of that information for you. Or if I don't, I know somewhere where you can go and get that information. Because we're probably going to see a lot of that kind of stuff as things go by. You know, somebody asked me about one of these fatal falls recently. He said, gosh, why didn't somebody get there with a drone or something? I just kind of looked at them like, do you not read the newspaper? Do you not look at anything online? And they basically said, no. I said, well, try it sometime, because they have a lot of cool stuff and it can do a lot of cool things. And if they want more information, then they can get it, if they want.
Yeah, I'd like to add just a few things. I mean, your presentations were outstanding, and thank you guys for taking the time to go into depth in some of these things when, generally speaking, you don't have to, because you have but the chief to answer to, right? And we understand that. What has been traditional is a thing of the past. Today, we're too technology advanced to do that old, let's just lay low for a little bit, get a feel for who's who, and then we'll act on that. You guys have been here for a while. You know who's who. You know what the trends are, and you know what needs to be done to move forward. And I can see that. I can hear that. And I get a sense that that's going to happen. You mentioned that you're looking at ways to relieve some of the duties of the BCs, because you've lived it, you've done it, you know what it is, and you know how much of a weight they have to carry. This organization is probably one of the few organizations that I've been involved with that wear many hats for the same position, and they're expected to, because we just don't have a staff large enough. The wheel or the buggy isn't broken, but maybe it's time to add a few more pounds of pressure in each tire. Maybe it's time to switch from regular fuel to premium and get this thing rolling a little bit better. The foundation that you guys mentioned, of others that have built that, and you guys are ready to build upon that, that cannot be more true than right now. As we're being scrutinized for every penny, for everything we do, everything we say, how we walk, how we talk, how we look. And I believe, based on your presentation, that we will move forward on that. The benefactor in all that is the citizen out there in the community, ultimately, because I truly believe we'll be better trained, we'll have better equipment, we'll have better efficiencies, better systems, and better ways of tracking all that. To again improve upon that. This board made some decisions a while back because we were seeing leadership from the top come and go. And although it's sometimes a breath of fresh air to get new ideas, we also realize that those leaders aren't going to be here for very long. We took the step in broadening the base for which we required them to live, so that we could grab from within, because they understood the system, they understood the communities, and they were raised within that. We see that. We have a duo up at the top, our chief and our chief of operations, that is second to none, literally. And I think that has bled down to see we have two people, one in training and one in EMS, that have the experience, have the education and have the desire to make that position even better. It wasn't broken before, but it's going to be better now. Job that Mike did for training, I got to tell you, sometimes the officer level, the minimum to have the horsepower that you need is the gold badge, is the chief level. And I recognize that. It's not to say the job that was done was not of the utmost to the best of his ability, because it was. And we saw that. We were head and shoulders above all others. And Mike, thank you for all that. But I'm looking forward to moving onward and upward with that. Having two bosses, looking at it from the bottom up, sometimes that can be confusing. Ellen pointed to, as a community member, who do I go to? As a community member, we're going to go to the chief. And the chief, I would expect at any moment, will have the answer or can get the answer. And I have no doubt that they'll have the resources and the staff to get that information he's going to need. Working with HR in the training, testing, and programs that are up and coming is critical. It keeps us safe as far as overextending or perhaps not even including. It keeps us inclusive of everybody. So that's extremely important, and you mentioned that. One of the questions I have is that everything that you proposed is how it's going to affect the member, how it's going to affect the district. How do you see yourselves infusing yourself into the community? Because that's going to be needed. Not always the chief. Look at us today. The chief's not here. It falls back on leadership and executive staff, command staff of what you guys are part of. So think about that. How do I infuse myself so that the community is better for it? You mentioned career development. I think Chief Baker, as far as firefighters to engineers, engineers to captains, captains to chiefs. I'd like you to think about the consideration of another stepping stone in there, and that's that of the inspector. Our captains are the ground level leaders for our crews, and if they're not well-rounded in all aspects, including code enforcement, we're missing the boat. Working with perhaps community risk reduction is that avenue that you may want to consider, because it is an important stepping stone. I think marketing is another part of that may be infused into what you do down the road in parts, not in totality, but in parts. So again, I think based on what I'm hearing and the flexibility that you have, but the desire to do what's absolutely best, marketing may come about it. So with all that said, I think we're in for an exciting time. Maybe even a bit of a wild ride. But I think, I think with that, the ultimate benefactor is that person out in the community. And we had one today, came in here and wanted to speak up on behalf of our budget. And in our next budget cycle, I expect the two of you to be a big part of that. And this board has made a lot of changes over the last 8 years, all for the better, all for inclusion. This past budget period, we had labor come in and be part of that. That's never happened before, not openly. Been part of negotiations and meet and confer and all that process. But with that said, congratulations on your promotions. Don't forget, what's important is really what's at home. That's your priorities. But we're here to listen to everything that you have, and hopefully that'll all be conveyed through the chief so that we can relay direction back to the chief, and you guys get the green light to do what you need to do. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? No. I hope, Kim, you got every word of that. It was almost as long as theirs. Okay, thank you guys very much. Okay, that brings us to our last item on the agenda, and that is our board member items, and we kind of just run down the row here to see what we've done in our past since our last meeting. So I will start with Janet. Is there anything you've
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I
Yes.
may, thank you and the board for your feedback, to both me and our folks presenting tonight. It's valuable. Did you want me to cover some of the call summary information, or did you want to just jump right to board report?
CR either.
Pardon
We haven't done story either.
Yeah, we did CR.
Blew right through it, so these talk.
Yeah, I think what we could do is, we could infuse that information, into our next board meeting and give those totals. They may look doubled, but it'll cover both periods. And we can go right to the, okay, good. Then we can go right to the, okay.
What do you say?
We can go right to our involvement.
My involvement is same as always, just doing, the requirements of what has to be done.
Okay, thank you. Helen?
After conference, didn't get to talk to Buzz. I waved at you.
Yeah, we talked for
Like-
5 minute spurts. and then-
Yeah. But
all
you
it took.
saved it for this, right? So thank you.
Yeah.
And other than that, the usual things of signing checks and, you know, visiting with the chief and so on.
Very good. Scott?
Yeah, a few things. I get, like I said, talk to a lot of people in different circles, try to give them information, that kind of thing, and it kind of pops up from everywhere. You never know. And, they kind of put you on the spot, but I'm kind of up to the challenge, you know what I mean? And, I too went with the conference, learned a lot of stuff, and no, I haven't taken all my stuff out of my bag yet. And, I did learn one, very good thing is that, what happens in Phoenix stays there.
Like,
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
That's all I said. It's kind of like Las Vegas, only not.
Thank you.
Hey,
Last
dude, your imagination is not mine.
Yeah. Last but not least, I too attended the conference, and as with every conference that we go to, sometimes I'll do, 2 in 1 year. There's always something you pick up. The statutory things aren't always repetitive. There are laws that change that affect us that we need to pick up. There's methods of doing things within our own organizations that are presented that other organizations are doing that we might want to infuse. Others that we kind of think like, you're doing what? So there's always something to learn from that. Continual work with the Firewise organization for Yavapai County. And with that, did have a one-on-one with the chief earlier to discuss some of the very things that we talked about today. With that said, unless there's anything else that anyone else would like to add, that concludes our meeting for today. This meeting is now adjourned. Go.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Dave.
Hey, thank you.
thank you.
Thank
I want to
you.
sign you guys off here. Nope.